Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Well, I'm very pleased to welcome back to the show. She is, she's an author, a writer, a self-employed business person, many other things. Mary, is it pronounced Pritchett?
Pichette.
Pichette. Sorry about that, Mary. So
Okay.
one of the things we're going to talk about, and as I mentioned before I start recording, is something that's very prevalent right now, and that's identity theft, right?
Yes.
So how are you involved in this?
Well, I have a passion for justice. And one of the greatest, if not, I mean, there's so many injustices on the planet. I don't want to compare. However, one of the greatest injustices is when your identity is stolen and someone uses it fraudulently, you have no recourse anywhere and you are guilty. And the fallout from that, you can lose your job, your home, some cases, your family, all that fallout, the stress, the upset, your finances are turned upside down. You've got nowhere to go, but you're guilty. You are guilty. And that is injustice at its core. There isn't a system across North America. I mean, there's not on the planet, but I'll stay with North America. There's no system in place to defend yourself unless, to get help.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And most people are caught off guard. So we keep our heads in the sand. I say 2024 will always be the year of the breach and the hack. It isn't. It's the year we suddenly became aware. And people are always saying, well, now what? My data's been stolen. Now what? Oh dear, my bank account. And I'm not talking about a credit card one time charge, but let's say my identity's been taken over. Somebody opened a line of credit, bought a car. Somebody stole the title to my house, sold my house while I was out of town. Now what? And that's where I come in, is to answer that question and provide solutions. I think it's really important to know what solutions are out there. And I think the other thing that I'm passionate about is that the solutions are affordable, because when justice is not affordable or service isn't affordable, you don't have justice. I mean, we know that about our justice system. People can't afford to be properly defended in court or stand up for their rights with knowledge of what's legal and what isn't. All of those contribute to injustice, and the source of it is no money, not enough. We have, and so it is with your identity. If it's not affordable, a service that's comprehensive and affordable, again, you don't have access to justice. So with that in mind, I, was looking for and sounding out and, hearing stories of what happened to people when their identities were stolen and somebody used them fraudulently. So with all of that, I've gone to work today. I spend my time just educating people about identity theft, why it matters to be concerned and what you can do about it,
Right.
but also how completely and utterly ineffective the solutions that are offered are just a money grab. And I think that's one of the other part of that's really disappointing when it comes to securing justice.
And now that we have that, like this, talk about artificial intelligence, apparently it's even
Yes.
worse now, right?
Yes. Yeah. One of the breaches that happened was called Out of Box, and it's a facial recognition system. The breach happened at the end of last year. The breach was out of Australia, but it reached across North America. And what Out of Box is used for is when you enter bars or restaurants, they do facial recognition. It was offered as a solution to gangs and thieves and nefarious people coming into bars and prevent gatherings that were harmful. Regrettably, it has served a much greater purpose,
Mhm.
and it was not properly protected. There had been very little to no cybersecurity put in place. So they gathered all that facial recognition, and then it was hacked. So now those hackers have, for those who were hacked, the facial recognition that they can now put to other data and create identities.
Right. Like one thing I know, like just with your password for if you're logging into your banking or whatever like that, like the banks, the institutes are always trying to keep one step ahead.
Yes,
Every so often they'll say, okay, you got to change your password. You have to add this, you have to add that, all these steps now you not have to take. So it's a constant ongoing battle for everybody.
yes, yes, it is. One of the biggest, in June, the month of June 2024, there's a hacker out there named Rocco 2024. That's the name he's given himself for this year.
Right.
And he stole 10 billion, 10.2 actually, billion email passwords.
Wow.
There's a population on the planet of 8 billion. So, and most of us have many more than just one email.
Right.
The highest, one of the most in demand theft of identity on the dark web, which is where all the data is sold, is a password to your email. And they sell for $156. Your driver's license will sell for 20. Your social insurance number, in somewhat depending who you are, where you are, they'll sell from about 26 to as high as 100. But some of the highest prices paid are for email passwords, because when I get in your email, I learn everything. I can create a very robust identity. People say, oh, I never put my travel plans on Facebook anymore. No, but it's in your email. Your airline ticket is there,
Right.
all kinds of other stuff. And that's what identity thieves need. But they can also find out when, the big birthday celebration for grandma or your sister, or a funeral, or a buying and selling of a house, or your insurance. I mean, just think about how much business you do across your email.
Yeah, pretty much everything. How did you learn about all of these details?
Well, my background is in as a law professor and a criminologist, and so I've got that kind of curious brain. And I had a friend back in about 2017. She's taking her grandmother for lunch across the border. So I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's very close to Washington State, and lots and lots of us go across the border for the day. So they were headed down. Her mother's 86. It bears relevance to the story. And they were headed down, and they got stopped at the border, handed their passports in, and the border guard came and said, who's so and so? And my girlfriend said, well, that's my mother. And they looked in and said, well, we have an arrest warrant, a very serious arrest warrant. In the US, they use the term felony, which in Canada translates to indictable offense,
Okay.
for bank robbery with violence.
Oh,
And my girlfriend says, well, clearly my mother didn't do that. And the border guard was quite gracious and said, no, I'm suspect to believe you. However, we cannot vacate the warrant. So they normally, the police would come in from the next city over, which has a court system and a jail system, and put her in jail. But fortunately, they had services. They had the legal services that allowed them to have a lawyer on call 24/7. They tapped the app on their phone. They got that. They had the lawyer going to work on it right away. But they also had identity protection services, and they had those available to them in an emergency. So it was probably about 11 in the morning, and they were able to get a private investigator to go to work. Now, so a live person, not somebody that call and they talk to you on the phone. And
yeah.
as I always say, I don't even know how to Google dark web. So the private investigator went to work, the lawyers went to work, the police felt some empathy, so they helped as well. But that was because the lawyer said, you now need to prove she's identified, and said, she's not that person, and it's clearly your evidence doesn't match her appearance. Took about 8 hours. She and my friend were locked in an interrogation room rather than a jail cell. But they located the original warrant in, I'll say Wyoming, but it was a fairly rural state, and eventually tracked down the arresting police officer, who could verify through exchange of photos that the mother was not the person he had arrested. Now, and then at that time, she was released. The warrant still wasn't vacated. She had to go back to court. Her lawyer, through her legal services, her private investigator, through her identity protection services, continued to work. So when she did go back to court, the warrant was vacated. But even though everyone agreed, and even though the police officer in, say, Wyoming said she's not the person, she still had to make a trip down to court. And fortunately, again, because that very easily could have been registered against her passport,
Right.
against her international travel. But because she had these services and she had the empathy of the investigating border services, it didn't happen. But let's, instead of being 86, let's be 26 and not have that empathy
Yeah.
and be treated as a criminal,
Right.
not have those services. You'd be going straight to the jail cells and, waiting to appearance. But all you could say at the appearance is, it's not me, I didn't do it. And it's like, well, now prove it. So that story and another one made me realize that, and I talked to some people that were in the identity, well, actually they were in cybersecurity protection services, and I would ask them, what do you do for people with their identities? And some big companies, I'm a bit of a nut. Well, no, it's not nutty, but I'm a stranger in that way.
Mm.
I started phoning around, my identity's been stolen. What can you do for me? Not one of them, not a single one had services that's called restoration services. And so that was back in, 2017, 2018 that I was doing that. And I started to realize, a friend of mine that was in the military um, recognized this service that I was now familiar with. 30 years ago, this company recognized that one of the fastest growing areas of injustice was theft of identity. Now, this was before the internet.
Right.
And these gentlemen were visionaries, and passionate advocates for creating justice across North America. So, or access to justice. And so I suspect their military background helped them really comprehend what identity theft, the costs of it was. And they started creating a service, and developing the ability to actually protect people after. Now, you can protect yourself ahead of time, but none of us, not even our tax services, can stop the hacks. Across the IRS and the CRA, there are 2.9 billion attempts at hacking those services. They
Right.
have the greatest aggregation of data out there. We've seen and heard stories of, people fighting to not have their tax information released, or fighting so it's not brought to court. So and we say, well, wonder what's in it. But it's more an indication of how vulnerable, how much information is there, and therefore how vulnerable we are when that information is taken.
There's, it just brought me back a little bit. Like, I can't remember when this happened, but I had to go to court. This person had used a credit card check. I've never had a check from a credit card company, but she had a check, and it was made out to her, but it was supposed to have been from me.
Yeah.
And I had to go to court, and I had to, say, did I know this woman, all this person? I didn't know who she was, and I didn't recognize her. And I said to the company, to the court, I never had.
Yeah.
You can contact my credit card company and they'll tell you,
Yeah.
they've never issued me any checks.
Yeah.
But it's just like those little things. And then I knew these people who were profilers. They would
Yeah.
find people before the internet got so prevalent, find people's, like, go through their garbage, maybe find their address or something in the mail that they get in the
Yep,
mail,
absolutely.
and build files on them,
Yes,
right?
very conscientiously. Yes, still
Yeah.
happening. Some of the
Go ahead.
most destructive identity theft is right in our own backyard. It's that kind of situation. Mail is stolen.
Yeah.
Yes, there's these huge data breaches. In fact, 3 weeks ago, yes, there's these huge data breaches, but some of the worst damage is just in our own backyard. Someone does exactly what you've described, and builds an identity around you, and very quickly goes out, writes that check, maybe gets a line of credit open, might be able to buy a house or a condo, buy a car, and then they disappear. But all that financial mess is left for you to clean up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
there's nothing that people get caught up in is like when you get a call, your credit card has been used fraudulently or something like that, and they want you to give, what's your credit card number? Like, you
Yeah.
know, they want to
Yeah.
confirm it, right? You know, so what I started to doing is saying, okay, wait a minute. And then I just put the phone down because my landline, and I don't get back to the phone, and eventually they hang out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know people get suckered in by that
Yeah.
and
And
do,
that those are called scams.
right.
And what'll happen is they may have one piece of identity that they've bought on the internet.
Mm,
And so the source of how they get your phone number. So they'll start there. They'll buy the data that got breached. Maybe, I mean, the best kind of data is, they'll go looking for very specific targets. It's just like the marketplace. If your niche is seniors, if your niche is athletes, if your niche is 22-year-olds starting college or finishing college, they will go on the dark web and they will buy that data very specific to a niche. And so then when they call, you know, depending who they're talking to, they know they're calling seniors to scam them, or they know they're calling 22-year-olds to get them to buy another credit card.
yeah.
Um, and that's all out there. Some of it is stolen, but we also have what's called aggregators. One of the largest aggregator is Credit Karma. Everybody says to me, oh, especially younger generations, so wonderful. Oh, I get my credit score all the time. I said, yeah, good for you, because you're getting nothing for it. But Credit Karma has gotten all of your information, and now they can even track where you purchase, what you purchase, all the other things that you're doing. And they are a legitimate aggregator. They gather that data and they sell it. And they sell it legitimately. They sell it to pollsters. They sell it to big corporations. Walmart could put out a call to aggregators for information on pregnant women, first child. They could send out a request, not just them, but any large company for marketing purposes.
All right.
Okay. They
Okay.
might want to know men and and it can be very specific. A couple together at age 56 that fly airplanes and travel to Arizona, can be that specific.
Yeah.
And the data is there because they have a very, very specific service or product they want to sell to that group, and the data is there. And that's what aggregators do. They collect data and sell it legitimately. So we are constantly giving our information to aggregators. And the biggest aggregator of all is your vehicle. And you signed a paper when you bought your vehicle. Very few people have their lawyers review their financial contract when they buy their vehicles, secondhand or not. And you checked off or agreed. They would have said, oh, just sign here. You would think you're signing about the financial agreement. Well, you also signed a whole bunch of other stuff. And your signature is, I agree to all of the above and the following. I agree to the above and the following. And what's in there is that all information that, your car has to be monitored for purposes of making sure the electronics are properly serviced. But your car tracks your weight. So if there's a massive change in weight, your car is tracking, and people say, well, I turned off my Google tracking. Yeah, but your car's doing it anyways. So now you're losing weight and your car is noting that you're driving to cancer clinics or doctor's appointments, or it's noting that you're always driving to the gym or driving to an event at one location. All that your breathing is tracked in your vehicle. Your conversations are listened to. We've all had that experience. We had a conversation in our car, and suddenly, everything we look at on our phone is about the couch that we talked about, or a new pair of ice skates. And so your car is also listening. They're tracking the music you're listening to. They're tracking the any radio, but audible books you're listening to, political podcasts. They're tracking it all through your vehicle. So your vehicle is one of the largest aggregators
Wow.
And of course they use it to sell you your next car, but
Mm.
they're also using it, like again, exactly as I used the other example.
Right.
But they start to find that you're traveling, say, to a cancer clinic. They're going to there's data of request and data of offering. So they can go to medical service supply companies and offer data. We have 100 or 200 or 6,000 people, who initiated cancer treatment in the last 30 days.
Right.
And we offer to sell you this data.
Wow. It's
And
amazing.
and you cannot get out of it.
Right.
That's another part of the injustice.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to the identity theft again, and where do you come in? How do you
So my services are to provide people with monitoring and alerts, which is out there by the dozen. But I also provide malware protection and what's called VPN, virtual private network, on your phones and tablets.
Okay.
And then the most important part of my service is what's called restoration. Private investigator will come and work with you when your identity is stolen and fraudulently used, do whatever it takes for as long as it takes, and restore your identity to pre-theft status.
Right.
So that's also included. And then a password vault, so you can protect your passwords. So, and we monitor also your social media, and we're not censoring it. We're simply
Yeah.
monitoring if your children's social media for bullying, your child's head been cut off and been put on a woman's body for purposes of pornography,
Yeah.
or vice versa. Monitoring, and when you say check your social media, so I did, with what Twitter, now X, discovered, and I made the discovery in 2020 through my service, that my Twitter account had been taken over in 2013 and again in 2017. I never would have found that, but it had been taken over and used, both to advocate a very far right, violent, racist philosophies and political, purposes, and it had been used to recruit people to those beliefs. I didn't know it was there.
Right.
So when we discovered it, I was asked, do I want to keep this? No, that didn't align with my beliefs at all.
Yeah.
And so that got scrubbed. But then the next thing I did, I was able to work with an identity theft specialist, a live person, and we put all my identity, on alert. And then they went looking to see if it existed on the dark web in other areas where my name or my reputation was being used to recruit people, not just through, my Twitter account.
Okay.
And so for 6 months, they didn't find anything. And so, we agreed that it was properly, taken care of. So one, we don't censor. I was asked in that.
Yeah.
Two, I then had the backup. So I wasn't just left with a panic. And now when people look me up and they're going to do business with me, or someone for some reason wants to actually do a deep dive, into my social media, or whatever it is that I put on social media, they're going to find me. They're not going to find that, I'm the face of some other, um, philosophy or values.
Right.
The reason I think it happened was I only used my Twitter account for fundraising.
Ah.
And so, and when I did my fundraising, I had once upon a time, a fairly high profile. Um, and when you're doing fundraising, you're talking to high profile people, business owners, large philanthropists, individual philanthropists, political people. And so it was likely that somebody tweaked on that and decided, and some of the political people in particular, and probably one or two of the philanthropists that I was linked to, are very, very high profile. And so there was kind of okay, there's something here. Like that's the only explanation.
Right.
But, so the service that I'm able to, provide also monitors your social media for bullying, for improper reputation. I say all the time to people that are doing business online, well, I Google myself, and then what?
Yeah.
Like, but when you're Googling yourself, are you able to go back 5 years, 10 years and see what else is on there?
Mm.
Another example I can give, if we're not taking up too much time, very recently, 50 Cent. So he's a well-known rapper.
Yeah.
So somebody, hacked into his website and his social media. And within 30 minutes, they set themselves up as him, as 50 Cent, and offered a scam for cryptocurrency. And within 30 minutes, they had scammed people out of $300 million.
Wow.
And then they disappeared. So the lawsuit is going ahead, and that's the only recourse people have if they have no services behind them,
Yeah.
is to sue each other. So he's being sued. His response was buyer beware, like,
Yeah.
but the response in the class action suit, it's still in court, was no, yes, buyer beware, but you had a responsibility. Now it's up to you to show us that you had proper and deep cybersecurity through your website, that you monitored your social media, because you rely on that website to sell your merchandise and your songs and make money. And you rely on your social media for passive advertising income, sell your merchandise and sell your songs or promote other people's events.
Right.
So you're out there using your own not cybersecurity, pardon me, using your own social media and website to create revenue for yourself. Therefore, you're responsible to ensure that it doesn't get abused or taken advantage of or hacked by others.
Right.
He's likely to lose the class action suit. And there will be some determination of a repayment that he's going to have to make. But he's
Wow.
in that situation saying, it's not me, I didn't do it. But the onus now in the courts, because that's the only recourse people have, they have the recourse
Yeah.
to sue each other, and the onus remains on the person that holds the contact data.
Okay.
So in my business, I work from home predominantly. I do other things offsite once in a while, but it's still up to me to be able to, if someone sues me, so let's say your identity is stolen, Nancy, and someone buys a car and opens a line of credit, and the banks get a hold of you in the car and they say, look, you're way behind, you owe this, and it's not even showing up on your credit report yet. And so you're saying, what do you say? It's not me.
Yeah.
So you go, well, where did they get my data? And you think, well, I gave my contact information to Mary Pichette. I gave it to Walgreens or London Drugs, or, and I gave it to the car dealership.
Right.
I'm going to sue all three of them. I'm
Ah.
going to make them pay for this because you have no other recourse. You don't know about Identity Shield protection services.
Right.
So you set out to sue them. The courts are going to obligate, that's the standard in courts right now, because you're suing me. And I come and I say, no, I have VPN on my phone. I have malware protection on my tablet and my laptop. And I have protocols in place, policies in place, which show my practices for protecting the identities of the people that give me the identities.
Hmm.
Now, the bar in the court is quite low. It's reasonable expectation.
Hmm.
And that you take reasonable steps. That's a low bar.
Right.
And it's doable. But let's say I come to court and I cannot defend myself. I don't have VPN on my phone. I've got your standard over-the-counter malware on my computer, but I don't have it on my tablet. Or maybe I do, but I let it run out and I didn't renew it. And I work from home. Why do I have to have identity protection service policies? And therefore you cannot defend yourself. And when you can't, the class action suits are deciding on behalf of the claimants. And when you cannot show that you took steps to protect the identities, and the terminology in the courts is contact information.
Right.
So yeah, that's what's and so we have to take those steps. And that, like, I met with a group of business women last night. I'm doing a lunch and learn out here in the lower mainland of BC every Friday. We've got to educate each other and make sure that we are doing these things. I can't stop the cybersecurity. I may not even be able to stop the thieves, but I can protect myself on two levels. One, as a business owner, I've taken the steps affordably.
Okay.
And two, as a person, I've protected,
Yeah.
I have the protection, the restoration services in place. Not if it happens, but when it happens, I will have a private investigator like the story I told you about my girlfriend's mother,
Right.
who will come along and do whatever it takes. They will go after and scrub the dark web. They will put things in place. They will bring the lawyers in, or I will get a legal service, and that will all be, the lawyers will write the letters. And I'm not going to be 600 hours, which works out to 4 years if someone has a full-time job, of of scrapping through the dark web and fighting people and arguing with them on the phone, because we feel helpless and powerless, and bill collectors are aggressive, and it gets worse. And if it's not stopped, it gets worse.
It's worse.
And
Yeah.
that's with a mess.
Right. We're just about out of time. So
Okay.
what's the best way to people get a hold of you if they want to find out more information, what it would cost for them?
Yes. Okay, so the services, all of which I've described, I'm going to tell you the cost because I want people to understand how reasonable it is. As an individual with 3 devices and everything I've described, it's $14.95 a month. So we work on a membership subscription base. For a family with up to 15 devices, all the services I've talked about, including your children's social media being protected, it's only $29.95. That's in Canadian dollar amounts.
Mm-hmm.
So the prices are the same in the US using USD. Where to reach me is Ask Pichette, Pichette, Ask Pichette @gmail.com. And no, I don't have a website. Some of that for all the reasons I've talked about. But I can provide videos. I can provide all of this information on a one-to-one basis as a way of protecting your data and mine. So Ask Pichette @gmail.com. Very, very affordable, 30-year-old company. And I'm also happy to invite you to one of my in-depth Zooms. My next Zoom is this coming Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time.
Well, this is not going to air in time for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But
You can say that.
I might be able to.
Okay.
Yeah. If you send me that message or put it on my Facebook page, I'll share it when you're next.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
All right. So in the meantime, I have to say goodbye to everybody. You've been listening to Mary Pichette. What did I say? Sorry, Pichette.
No, that was great.
Oh, okay. And I will have all that information that she just told me. I'll have it written down so you can read it, because I think that's helps some of us if we have problems hearing like I do. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching the show. I really hope you can continue to do so. And I really hope you check this out and share it with your friends, because this is important. Thanks, everybody.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the opportunity, and to all of your viewers, well done that you're educating yourself through Nancy's small talk.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Peace out. Oops. Okay, just before I end this off, I'm going to message you. Send me all that information that written down. Not all the information, but just your contact and the cost. So then everybody, when they see it written, like I said, sometimes in here, and then post whenever that your next thing
the seminars are my Friday seminars,
and I will share that as well. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll let you know when this is going to air too.
Okay. And have you protected your identity, Nancy?
I haven't done anything, just a regular little stuff for.
Yeah. And you're even more vulnerable because you're producing these shows.
Yeah.
All right. Because now I can grab your information, what you look like. Through your small talk, I'm getting bits and pieces of information.
Absolutely.
So if I'm not overstepping my boundaries, may I send you some information just to outline it? Yeah. You don't want to be in that situation that 50 Cent was in. And you think, well, that won't happen because I don't have $300 million. You don't need 300 million. You just need a couple of thousand. So
I understand
I'd like to share that with you. I'll do that privately.
Yeah, I'll give you a messenger. I'll give you my email address.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Will do. Okay. Thanks, Nancy.
All
right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.